He drove through Manhattan to buy a ring for the woman who destroyed his world and found the woman who could have saved it starving in the gutter with his child. The tinted window of Chun Min-jun's Mercedes reflected nothing but his own face as the convoy rolled toward the Diamond District. Behind that glass sat a man who controlled territories across 3 continents, who could end lives with a phone call, who had finally decided to make Sophia Johnson his wife after 2 years of convincing himself that love was just another transaction. The ring waiting at Cartier cost $2 million. He'd never even asked what Chioma's favorite gemstone was. Traffic slowed as they cut through the Bronx, the kind of neighborhood his security detail hated. Red light. The convoy stopped. And that's when Chun saw her. The woman sitting on the concrete next to an overflowing dumpster wore clothes that might have once been a dress. Her hair, which used to smell like cocoa butter and fall in perfect coils past her shoulders, was matted and pulled back with torn fabric. She was thin, dangerously thin, her rich brown skin now carrying the gray undertone of prolonged starvation. But it was her face that made his heart stop beating. Chioma Ejiofor. The Nigerian banker who'd once walked into his private office wearing a burgundy suit and told him his money laundering operation was sloppy before offering to fix it. The woman who'd laughed at his threats and then kissed him in the rain outside a restaurant he just bought to impress her. The woman who'd disappeared 2 years ago with nothing but a note saying she never wanted to see him again. She was feeding something to a little girl. The child couldn't have been more than 2 years old, sitting in her mother's lap, reaching for scraps that Chioma was carefully breaking into smaller pieces. Then the child turned her head toward the car and Chun's entire world imploded. She had his eyes. Not similar eyes. His exact eyes, dark and sharp, with that slight upward tilt of the corners that every member of his bloodline carried. His jawline, already forming in her small face. His expression when concentrating, that little furrow between the eyebrows. The girl was him. Wearing rags in the Bronx. Eating garbage. What happened next would shatter everything Chun thought he knew about the past 2 years. Because the woman he blamed for abandoning him hadn't left at all. She'd been taken. And the person who took her was the same woman now wearing his grandmother's heirloom necklace, planning a wedding that would legitimize his empire. This is the story of how a single moment at a traffic light destroyed 1 life and saved 3 others. Move. The word came out like gravel scraping against stone. Chun's driver hesitated, glancing in the rearview mirror with a kind of concern that came from 5 years of service. "Sir, this neighborhood is not secure. We should proceed to Cartier and move the car. Now." Chun's hand was already on the door handle. His security chief, a former Korean Special Forces operative named Park, started to protest, but the look Chun gave him could have stopped a bullet. The door opened and November cold hit him like a physical blow. He stepped onto the broken sidewalk in his $15,000 Tom Ford suit, his handmade Italian shoes touching pavement that probably hadn't been cleaned in months. Behind him, he heard Park speaking urgently into his radio. Probably calling for backup. Probably assuming this was some kind of threat situation. It was a threat. Just not the kind Park could protect him from. Chun took 3 steps toward the woman and child before Chioma's head snapped up. Their eyes met across 15 feet of cracked concrete and accumulated street trash. He watched her face drain of all color. Watched her arms instinctively tighten around the little girl. Watched her mouth form his name without any sound coming out. Then she ran. She grabbed the child and bolted toward an alley, moving with the desperate speed of someone who'd learned to survive in places where hesitation meant death. Something in Chun's chest cracked open. He'd seen people run from him before, hundreds of times. Fear was a tool he'd mastered long ago. But this was different. This was Chioma, who'd never been afraid of anything, running from him like he was the devil himself. And maybe he was. His feet moved before his brain could catch up. His security team shouted something behind him, but he was already in the alley, his polished dress shoes splashing through puddles he'd normally never acknowledge existed. She made it 20 feet before hitting a dead end. A brick wall, topped with rusted razor wire, blocking any escape. Chioma spun around, pressing her back against the wall, holding the little girl against her chest like a shield. The child wasn't crying. That's what struck him. She was just watching him with those eyes that were his eyes, curious and calm, like she was trying to figure him out. Chioma. His voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Stay away from us. Her voice was different now, rougher, scraped raw by whatever she'd been through. But underneath it he heard the tremor, the terror she was trying so hard to hide. The little girl reached up and touched Chioma's face. Mama, her voice was so small, so perfect. It's okay. And that broke something in him that he didn't know could still break. How old is she? The question came out before he could stop it. Chioma's jaw clenched. Her arms tightened around the child. You need to leave. How old? 2 years. The words were barely a whisper. She turned 2 in September. The math hit him like a bullet to the chest. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 10,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Chioma had disappeared in January, 2 years ago. Chioma had disappeared in January, 2 years ago. If the girl was 2 now, born in September, that meant when Chioma left, when she supposedly abandoned him, when she supposedly decided she didn't want this life anymore, she was already carrying his child. But if you're just now finding out what happened, you need to stick around. Because what comes next is going to change everything you think you know about betrayal. You were pregnant. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, a realization, a confession all rolled into one. When you left. He couldn't finish the sentence because suddenly the words felt wrong. When she what? Left? Disappeared? Abandoned him? Don't. The word came out sharp as glass. Don't you dare make this about what I didn't tell you. Chioma's eyes blazed with something he'd never seen before. Rage, yes, but deeper. Betrayal. The kind that didn't heal. You made your choice, Chun. You believed what you wanted to believe. And now you need to leave us alone. But he couldn't move. Couldn't think past the little girl staring at him with his own eyes. Couldn't process that somewhere in this city for 2 years, his daughter had been living in poverty while he... What's her name? Chioma's expression shuttered. That's none of your business. Tell me her name. No. Please. He'd never begged for anything in his life. The word felt foreign in his mouth, wrong, like speaking a language he'd never learned. But it came out anyway, rough and desperate. Please, Chioma. Just tell me my daughter's name. Something flickered in her expression. Not softening, exactly. More like recognition of how far he'd fallen. Mina. Her voice was quiet, defeated. Her name is Mina. Mina. He tested the name, felt it reshape everything he thought he knew about his own life. Mina. His daughter. 2 years old. Living in rags in the Bronx while he'd been building an empire and planning a wedding to a woman who... Behind them, his security team appeared at the mouth of the alley. Sir, we need to move you back to the vehicle. This location is not secure. Get out. Chun didn't take his eyes off Chioma. The command came out with the kind of authority that had built kingdoms and toppled governments. All of you. Get out. Now. They hesitated. Park stepped forward, his hand moving toward his weapon, his training screaming at him that this situation was all wrong. Boss, I can't leave you. I said get out. The words echoed in the alley. Final. Absolute. Park's jaw tightened, but he knew better than to argue when Chun used that tone. He gestured to the rest of the team and they retreated, though Chun could feel their presence at the alley entrance, watching, ready to intervene if things went south. And then it was just the three of them. A mafia boss in a suit that cost more than most people made in a year. A woman in rags who used to run international banking deals. And a little girl who had his eyes and her mother's courage. What happened to you? The question hung in the cold air. Chioma's laugh was bitter, broken. You did. You happened to me, Chun. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Mina squirmed in her mother's arms and Chioma set her down carefully, keeping one hand on the child's shoulder. Mina immediately crouched down to examine something on the ground, a piece of broken glass that caught the light. Don't touch that, sweetheart. Chioma's voice was gentle despite everything. Stay right here next to Mama. She's beautiful. The words came out without permission. Chioma's expression cracked, just for a second, before she rebuilt the wall. She looks like you. She looks like both of us. No. Chioma shook her head. She looks like you. She has your face, your expressions, your stubbornness. The only thing she got from me is her skin and her hair. Everything else is pure Chun Min-jun. Is that why you ran? Because she looks like me? I ran because you're dangerous. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because the last time I trusted you, I ended up here. And I won't let that happen to her. The accusation landed like a knife between his ribs. I never, he started, but she cut him off. You never what? Never told someone to take me? Never ordered me removed from your life? Never decided I wasn't worth the trouble? I never did any of that. Then who did? The question hung there, heavy with implications he was only beginning to understand. But before he could answer, before he could even begin to process what she was suggesting, Mina looked up from her examination of the ground and said something that stopped the world. Mama, is this man my daddy? And if you think that question was hard to hear, wait until you find out what Chioma told her. Because the answer is going to break your heart. Chioma's face went white. Mina stood there, head tilted in that way that was so achingly familiar it hurt, waiting for an answer with the patient curiosity of a child who didn't understand she'd just dropped a bomb. Chioma crouched down, eye level with her daughter, and Chun watched her hands shake as she smoothed Mina's hair. Baby, we talked about this. Your daddy, he couldn't be with us. Remember? But you said he had dark eyes like mine. Mina's voice was so innocent, so trusting. And this man has dark eyes. So is he my daddy? Chun felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Could only wait for Chioma to answer. She looked up at him and he saw something in her expression that terrified him more than any weapon ever had. Resignation. Like she'd always known this moment would come and had spent 2 years dreading it. Yes, baby. She said it so quietly he almost didn't hear. This is your daddy. Mina studied him with serious eyes. Why doesn't he live with us? It's complicated, sweetheart. Did he not want me? The question was like a gunshot. No. Chioma's voice cracked. No baby, that's not. She took a breath. He didn't know about you. Why not? Because, Chioma glanced at Chun and he saw the hatred there, burning underneath the exhaustion. Because some people lied. And I couldn't tell him. I tried, but I couldn't reach him. Chun's mind was racing. Tried to reach him? When? How? He'd checked his messages obsessively for months after she left. He'd checked her bank accounts, her phone records, everything. There had been nothing. No calls. No attempts. Just silence. Unless. unless someone had intercepted those attempts. Someone with access to his communications. Someone who would benefit from keeping him and Chioma apart. Someone like Sophia. The realization hit him like ice water. Sophia, who'd appeared in his life 3 months after Chioma disappeared. Sophia, who'd been sympathetic, understanding, who'd helped him through the grief. Sophia, who'd slowly, carefully positioned herself as the perfect replacement. Sophia, who was wearing his ring and planning their wedding. Where have you been living? The question came out harsh and Mina flinched. Chun immediately softened his voice. I need to know, Chioma. These past 2 years. Where were you? Here. Her voice was flat. The Bronx. Sometimes Queens. Wherever we could find a place that would take us without asking questions. You had money. You had accounts. You had. All frozen. Chioma cut him off. Every account, every card, everything I had access to was frozen within 48 hours of me being taken. Someone made very sure I had nothing. Taken. The word landed heavy. You said taken. Not left. Taken. Chioma's jaw clenched. You really don't know, do you? You actually believe I just walked away from you. From us. From everything we had. You left a note. I didn't write any note. Your handwriting can be forged. Her eyes flashed. Especially if you have access to enough samples. Which your girlfriend certainly did after going through your apartment. She's not he stopped. Because what was Sophia, exactly? His fiancée? The woman he was supposed to marry in 3 months? The woman who might have orchestrated the kidnapping of the mother of his child? Mina tugged on Chioma's sleeve. Mama, I'm cold. I know, baby. Just a few more minutes, okay? But watching his daughter shiver in clothes that were too thin for November weather broke something in Chun that he'd thought was already broken. Come with me. Chioma's head snapped up. What? You're cold. She's cold. Come with me. I have a car, heat, food, I can. No. The word was immediate, absolute. Chioma, be reasonable. Reasonable? Her laugh was bitter. You want me to be reasonable? You, who believed I abandoned you without even looking for proof. You, who moved on to another woman while I was starving in the streets with your child. You want me to just get in your car and trust you? I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. The accusation hung between them, and Chun couldn't argue because she was right. He'd spent 2 years angry, hurt, betrayed. He'd never once considered that maybe the betrayal went the other way. If you want to know how a man deals with being confronted with his own failures, keep watching. Because what happens next will show you exactly what Chun Min-jun is made of. Tell me everything. Chun pulled out his phone, fingers already moving over the screen. He sent a quick text to Park with 1 word followed by 3 names and the instruction to wait. Then he looked at Chioma. From the beginning. Tell me what happened the day you disappeared. Chioma's expression was guarded. Why would I tell you anything? Because I'm going to find out anyway. His voice was cold now, clinical. The voice he used when people's lives hung in the balance and emotions were a luxury he couldn't afford. And I'd rather hear it from you first. So you can decide if I'm lying? So I can decide who needs to die. The words came out flat, factual. Not a threat. A promise. Chioma studied him for a long moment. Mina had gone back to examining the ground, humming softly to herself, oblivious to the tension crackling between her parents. It was January 15th. Chioma's voice was quiet but steady. 2 years ago. I was at work, finishing up an audit for one of our international clients. You were in Tokyo for that weapons deal. He remembered. 3 days in Tokyo, finalizing a shipment that would have doubled their profits in the Asian market. He'd called her every night. I left the office around 7. It was dark, snowing. I took the subway like always. When I got to my stop, 3 men were waiting. Chun's jaw clenched. "Go on." They grabbed me as soon as I came up the stairs. Put something over my face, some kind of cloth that smelled like chemicals. When I woke up, I was in a warehouse. No windows. They'd taken my phone, my wallet, my keys. Everything. How long were you there? 2 days, I think. It was hard to tell. They kept me tied up, barely gave me water. Then on the 3rd day, a woman came. What woman? Chioma looked at him and he saw the truth in her eyes before she even said the name. Sophia Johnson. She walked in wearing a white coat like she was visiting a laboratory, not a kidnapping. She stood there and told me I was being removed from your life. That you didn't want me anymore. That I was an inconvenience that needed to be eliminated. Chun's hand tightened on his phone. Every muscle in his body was coiled, ready to explode into violence. But he kept his voice level. Continue. She had a note. Said it was from you. It said, Chioma's voice wavered for the first time. It said you'd realized I was using you. That you discovered I'd been stealing from the bank to fund a rival operation. That you wanted me gone, and if I ever tried to contact you again, you'd have me killed. I never wrote that. I know that now. But then, Chioma shook her head. I was terrified. I'd been kidnapped, drugged, and now the man I loved supposedly wanted me dead. What was I supposed to think? You should have known I would never. How? She cut him off, her voice rising. How was I supposed to know? You run a criminal empire, Chun. You've killed people for less than betrayal. For all I knew, it was true. Maybe you had discovered something. Maybe I had done something wrong without realizing it. Maybe, she took a shaky breath. Maybe you'd just gotten tired of me. Never. The word came out with more force than he'd intended. I would never have gotten tired of you. What we had was what? She challenged. Real? Special? Then why did you believe Sophia so easily when she told you I'd left? Why didn't you search for me? Because I got a note too. The realization was dawning on him now, pieces clicking into place like a weapon being assembled. In your handwriting. Explaining why you had to leave. Why you couldn't be with me anymore. I never wrote any note to you. I know that now. His voice was tight with barely controlled rage. But Sophia made sure we each got a message. Each one designed to keep us apart. She played us both. Yes. And I'm going to kill her for it. The words hung in the cold air, simple and absolute. Chioma didn't flinch. She just looked at him with those exhausted eyes and said, "Get in line. If you think that's dark, just wait. Because the investigation Chun's about to launch will uncover details that make kidnapping look merciful." Chun made 3 phone calls while standing in that alley. The first was to his head of security. "Park, I need a full detail on my location. Protective custody for 2 individuals. No one gets close without my authorization. No one." The second was to his technology specialist. "Minho, I need you to pull every communication that came through my system 2 years ago, January through March. Phone, email, text, everything. Someone intercepted messages. I need to know who and how." The third call was to his attorney. "Ji Woo, freeze all wedding plans immediately. Cancel the venue, the caterers, everything. And start divorce proceedings on an engagement. I need Sophia Johnson completely removed from any access to my accounts, my properties, my life. Do it now." He hung up and looked at Chioma. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "What did she do with you?" Off to the warehouse? She had them drive me to the Bronx and dump me on a street corner with nothing but the clothes I was wearing and that fake note from you. Told me if I ever tried to contact you, tried to go to the police, tried to tell anyone what happened, she'd make sure both you and I were destroyed. She had photos, evidence she said would prove I'd been embezzling from the bank. Evidence that would have me arrested and you implicated as my accomplice. And you believed her? I was pregnant, alone, and terrified. Chioma's voice broke. Yes, I believed her. What choice did I have? Mina looked up at the sound of her mother's distress. Mama, don't be sad. I'm okay, baby. Chioma wiped her eyes quickly. Chun crouched down so he was at Mina's eye level. The little girl regarded him with curious wariness. Hi, Mina. Hi. I'm sorry I wasn't there before. His voice was gentle in a way most people never heard. But I'm here now. And I'm going to make sure you and your mama are safe. Okay? Are you really my daddy? Yes. Okay. She said it so simply, like that answered everything. Can we get food? I'm hungry. The words were like a knife to his chest. His daughter was hungry. His daughter, who should have been living in a penthouse with a nanny and private tutors and every toy she could imagine, was standing in an alley asking for food because she was hungry. Yes. He stood up. We're going to get you so much food you won't know what to do with it. Chioma started to protest, but he cut her off. You can hate me later. Right now, your daughter is cold and hungry, and I have the ability to fix that. Let me fix it. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Park appeared at the entrance to the alley with 4 other security personnel. They'd brought blankets and bottled water without being asked. Professional to the core. Chun took one of the blankets and wrapped it around Mina himself. The little girl's eyes went wide. It's so soft, she whispered. You can keep it. Really? Really? He picked her up and she didn't protest, just settled against his chest like she'd been doing it her whole life. Something inside him cracked wider. Take us to the penthouse, he told Park. And someone call ahead. I want food ready. Real food. Soup, bread, fruit, whatever a 2-year-old can eat. And get a doctor on standby. They both need to be checked. Sir, about the Cartier appointment. Cancel it. But the ring. I don't need a ring anymore, Park. I need the truth. And as they walked out of that alley, Chun carrying his daughter while Chioma walked beside him wrapped in a blanket that probably cost more than she'd had to survive on for 2 years, he realized something. The investigation wasn't about evidence anymore. It was about retribution. And Sophia Johnson had no idea what was coming for her. If you're wondering how a man dismantles someone's entire life in less than 24 hours, stay with me. Because Chun Min-jun is about to show you exactly how a mafia boss handles betrayal. The penthouse was on the 47th floor of a building Chun owned in Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the city that sparkled like scattered diamonds. The furniture was modern, expensive, impersonal. The kind of place designed to impress, not to live in. Mina's eyes went wide when they stepped off the private elevator. Mama, is this a castle? Something like that, baby. Chioma looked around with an expression that was hard to read. Chun remembered suddenly that she'd been here before. 2 years ago. When they'd spent a weekend locked in his bedroom, ordering takeout and ignoring the world outside. Before everything fell apart. The food was already laid out on the dining table. Soup, fresh bread, fruit, cheese, cookies. Mina made a small sound and started toward it, but Chioma held her back. Slow, sweetheart. Your stomach isn't used to this much food. We have to be careful. Chun watched as Chioma carefully portioned out small amounts, testing to make sure nothing was too hot, breaking the bread into tiny pieces. Every movement was practiced, efficient. She'd been doing this alone for 2 years. While he'd been eating at restaurants where a single meal cost more than she'd probably had to spend in a month. The doctor arrived within 30 minutes. An older woman named Dr. Yoon who'd been on Chun's payroll for years. She examined both Chioma and Mina quietly, professionally. When she was done, she pulled Chun aside. The child is malnourished but resilient. She'll need a careful diet plan to avoid refeeding syndrome. Lots of small meals, gradually increasing portions. I'll send over a detailed guide. And Chioma? Dr. Yoon's expression hardened. She's severely underweight. Shows signs of prolonged stress, possible PTSD. Her body has been in survival mode for a very long time. She needs rest, proper nutrition, and probably therapy. She'll have all of it. Mr. Chun, the doctor's voice dropped. I've treated a lot of people in my career. I know trauma when I see it. Whatever happened to her, it wasn't just physical hardship. Someone hurt her. Badly. I know. His jaw clenched. And they're going to pay for it. After Dr. Yoon left, Chun found Chioma standing by the windows, watching the city lights. Mina had fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in blankets, finally warm and fed. She looks peaceful. Chioma's voice was soft. She's safe. That's why. For now. He moved to stand beside her. What does that mean? It means I know how your world works, Chun. Today you're playing hero. Tomorrow, when the shock wears off, you'll realize we're a complication you don't need. And then we'll be back on the streets. No. No? She laughed bitterly. You don't get to just decide that. You have a whole life planned. A wedding. A future with someone else. That future was built on lies. So build a different one. Just not with us. Why not? She turned to look at him and he saw tears in her eyes for the first time. Because you broke me, Chun. You broke me in ways I didn't know I could break. And I don't have anything left to give you. I'm not asking you to give me anything. I'm asking you to let me fix what I broke. You can't fix this. Her voice cracked. You can't fix 2 years of sleeping in abandoned buildings and begging for food and watching our daughter cry herself to sleep because she was hungry. You can't fix me being so terrified every day that I'd be found and killed that I couldn't even think straight. You can't fix what it did to me to believe that you, the person I loved most in the world, wanted me dead. I'll spend the rest of my life trying. Why? She demanded. Why does it matter now? You were fine without us. You were moving on. You found someone else. She wasn't you. The words hung between them. She was never you, Chioma. And I was never fine. I was surviving. There's a difference. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from Min Ho, his tech specialist. Found something. You need to see this. Chun looked at Chioma. My technology team found something. Evidence, probably. Do you want to see it? She hesitated, then nodded. What they were about to discover would answer every question about how Sophia had orchestrated the perfect crime. But it would also raise a new question. If Sophia went to these lengths to tear them apart, what else was she capable of? And more importantly, what would she do when she realized Chun knew the truth? Min Ho arrived at the penthouse with a laptop and the grim expression of someone who'd seen something they couldn't unsee. You're not going to like this, boss. Show me. They gathered around the dining table, Chioma sitting stiffly beside Chun, while Min Ho opened files that would rewrite everything they thought they knew. First, the communications. Min Ho pulled up a screen showing message logs. Someone created a mirror server 2 years ago, January 10th. 5 days before Ms. Ejiofor disappeared. Every message between your phone and hers was routed through this server first. Meaning? Meaning someone could read, delete, or modify any communication between you before it reached either of you. He pulled up another screen. Here. January 15th, 8:47 p.m. Ms. Ejiofor sent you 17 text messages over the course of 3 hours. All blocked before they reached your phone. Chun felt his blood run cold. Show me. Min-ho clicked, and the messages appeared. Chun, something's wrong. Please call me. I'm scared. Where are you? They say you sent them. Please tell me you didn't send them. I'm pregnant. I'm carrying our baby. Please, please answer me. The messages went on. 17 desperate pleas that he'd never received. 17 chances to save her that had been stolen. Chioma had gone pale, staring at the screen. I sent those before they drugged me again. I thought, her voice broke. I thought you were ignoring me. I thought you really had sent them and just didn't care. I never got them. His hand clenched into a fist. I never got any of them. There's more. Min-ho pulled up bank records. Ms. Ejiofor's accounts were accessed on January 16th at 3:22 a.m. Every account was emptied and then closed. Total amount stolen was $284,000. That was everything I had. Chioma whispered. My savings, my emergency fund, everything. The money was transferred through 3 shell corporations before landing here. Min-ho highlighted an account. This belongs to a company called Stellar Media Group. I don't know that company. You do. Min-ho pulled up incorporation documents. It's owned by Sophia Johnson. She created it 6 months before you met her. Chun stood up, pacing. So she'd been planning this. For 6 months before she even appeared in my life, she was setting up the infrastructure to destroy Chioma. It gets worse. Min-ho pulled up surveillance footage. This is from Ms. Ejiofor's bank. 2 days before the kidnapping, someone accessed the bank system and planted false transaction records. Records showing Ms. Ejiofor had been moving money to offshore accounts and creating fake loans. The evidence Sophia threatened me with. Chioma's voice was hollow. She manufactured it before she even took me. She was building an insurance policy. Min-ho nodded. If Ms. Ejiofor ever tried to come back, Sophia had evidence ready to destroy her credibility and send her to prison. How did she access the bank systems? Min-ho pulled up more files. Sophia Johnson isn't her real name. She was born Sarah Choi in Seoul. Degree in computer science from MIT. Worked for 3 different cybersecurity firms before disappearing from public records 5 years ago. She's a professional boss. This isn't some crime of passion. This was calculated. Chun felt rage building in his chest like a living thing. Every detail was another nail in Sophia's coffin. Every piece of evidence was another reason she deserved everything that was coming to her. Is there more? One more thing. Min-ho pulled up a final document. The note you received, the one supposedly from Ms. Ejiofor saying she was leaving you. I ran the handwriting through analysis. It's a forgery, but an excellent one. She must have practiced for months. She had samples. Chioma said quietly. I left notes for you all the time. Little messages, shopping lists, reminders. She would have had dozens of samples to work from. The picture was complete now. Sophia had identified Chioma as competition, spent 6 months planning her removal, executed a perfect kidnapping, stolen her money, planted false evidence, and kept her separated from Chun through intercepted communications and forged notes. It was professional, thorough, ruthless, and it had almost worked perfectly. Boss, Min-ho said carefully. What do you want me to do with this information? Chun looked at Chioma, then at Mina sleeping on the couch, then back at the evidence of 2 years of calculated cruelty. Package it all. Everything. Make it airtight. Then prepare for distribution. Distribution? To every news outlet in New York. Every federal agency. Every international authority that might care. And make sure it's all traced back to Sophia Johnson, so there's no question who did this. You're going public? I'm burning her life to the ground. His voice was cold, final. The same way she tried to burn Chioma's. Chioma stood up. Chun, if you do this, she'll know you found me. She'll know we talked. She could still use that manufactured evidence against me. Not once this goes public. Minho smiled grimly. Once this hits the news, any evidence she has will look like exactly what it is. A frame job by a kidnapper trying to cover her tracks. And the authorities? Chioma pressed. They'll want statements, investigations. I'm not sure I can handle that right now. You won't be alone. Chun looked at her. I'll make sure you have the best lawyers, the best protection, everything you need. Sophia took 2 years from us. I'm going to make sure she pays for every single day. Chioma studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Do it. If you're wondering what happens when a woman who built her entire life on deception suddenly finds herself exposed to the world, keep watching. Because Sophia Johnson's perfect facade is about to shatter in the most public way possible. The news broke at 6 a.m. the next morning. Every major outlet in New York received the same package simultaneously. Video evidence, bank records, communication logs, witness statements. The story was impossible to ignore and too well documented to dismiss. Influencer accused of kidnapping, fraud, and attempted murder. The headlines were brutal. By 7 a.m., Sophia's face was on every news channel. By 8 a.m., her social media accounts were flooded with hate. By 9 a.m., sponsors were dropping her, brands were removing her campaigns, and her management company had issued a statement terminating their relationship. By 10 a.m., the police had a warrant for her arrest. Chun watched it all unfold from his penthouse, Chioma standing beside him, Mina eating breakfast at the table behind them, oblivious to the fact that her existence had just become headline news. Mafia boss's secret daughter found living in poverty. That headline made Chun's jaw clench. They'd managed to keep Mina's face out of the reports, but her story was everywhere. The child who'd been hidden from her father. The innocent victim of a jealous woman's scheme. Your organization is going to react to this. Chioma said quietly. They're going to see this as weakness. Let them. Chun, be serious. You just announced to the criminal underworld that you have a daughter. That makes her a target. Anyone who comes near her will die. His voice was flat, absolute. I'll make an example of the first person who tries. After that, no one else will be stupid enough to follow. That's not a life for a child. Neither is poverty in the Bronx. She flinched and he immediately regretted his words. I'm sorry. That wasn't fair. No, you're right. Her voice was tired. Neither situation is good. But at least in the Bronx, she was invisible. Now she's the daughter of a mafia boss. Every enemy you have is now her enemy too. So I'll eliminate my enemies. All of them? If I have to. Before Chioma could respond, Chun's phone rang. Park. Boss, we have a situation. Sophia Johnson just arrived at the building. She's demanding to see you. Don't let her up. She's claiming she has information about threats to your family. Says if we don't let her up, blood will be on your hands. Chun looked at Chioma. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Let her up, he said finally. But search her first. I want 3 guards in the room at all times. And activate the recording system. Everything she says goes on record. He hung up and turned to Chioma. Take Mina into the bedroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. I want to face her. No. Chun, I deserve to. You deserve to never see her again. His voice softened. Please, Chioma. Let me handle this. Let me be the one who stands between you and the person who hurt you. It's the least I can do. She searched his face for a long moment, then nodded. She gathered Mina and disappeared into the back bedroom. 3 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Sophia Johnson stepped into the penthouse wearing a designer suit and an expression of righteous fury. She looked nothing like someone whose life had just imploded. She looked like someone coming to negotiate. Chun, thank God. She started toward him, but the 3 security guards blocked her path. What is going on? The news is reporting insane things about me. You have to help me fix this. Fix it? His voice was ice. Why would I fix it? Because it's all lies. Her eyes were wide, convincing. Someone is trying to frame me. I would never hurt anyone. You know me. I don't know you at all. Apparently. If I'd been stronger, Chioma countered, I would have fought harder to reach you. I would have found a way to get a message through despite Sophia's interference. We can both play the blame game forever, Chun. Or we can just accept that we were both victims of someone who is very good at manipulation. He looked at her, really looked at her. The woman sitting beside him on this park bench wasn't the same Chioma he'd known 2 years ago. That woman had been confident, polished, always in control. This Chioma was harder, scarred in ways that had nothing to do with her body. But underneath the damage, he could still see the fire that had made him fall in love with her in the first place. What happens now? The question hung between them. Now? Chioma looked at Mina, who was picking dandelions with intense concentration. Now we figure out how to be parents to a child who doesn't know either of us very well. Now we figure out if trust can be rebuilt or if too much has been broken. Now we take it one day at a time and hope that's enough. And us? She turned to look at him, and her expression was complicated. Pain and hope mixed together in equal measure. There is no us right now, Chun. There's you and there's me, and there's Mina. Maybe someday there could be an us again. But that's not today. Today I'm just trying to remember what it feels like to not be terrified every moment. He wanted to argue. Wanted to promise her that everything would be okay, that he'd fix it all, that love could conquer anything. But he'd learned something in that alley yesterday. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is give someone space to heal. Okay. His voice was quiet. One day at a time. Mina ran over with a handful of dandelions, her face bright with joy. Mama, look. They're yellow like my old dress. They're beautiful, baby. Are they for me? Chun asked. Mina considered this seriously. Then she divided the dandelions in half, giving some to Chioma and some to Chun. Now we all have flowers. Now we all have flowers, Chun repeated, and something in his chest felt like it was breaking and healing at the same time. They sat there for another hour, just being. Not planning, not strategizing, not trying to force anything. Just existing in the same space while Mina played and the city moved around them and the sun filtered through the trees. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the reunion Chun might have imagined in his weaker moments. But it was real. And after 2 years of lies, real was more valuable than perfect. When Mina started to tire, they walked back to the penthouse. Chun carried her the last few blocks when she got too sleepy to walk. She rested her head on his shoulder and he felt the weight of her, small and trusting, and made a silent promise that he'd spend the rest of his life earning that trust. Back at the penthouse, Chioma gave Mina a bath while Chun stood in his living room and stared at the city below. His phone had been buzzing all day with messages from his organization. Questions about Mina. Concerns about his judgment. Subtle threats from those who saw a child as weakness. He'd deal with them tomorrow. Tonight, he had more important things to focus on. Chioma emerged from the bathroom carrying a clean, drowsy Mina wrapped in a towel. I don't have any of her things here. No pajamas, no toys, nothing. We'll get everything tomorrow. For tonight, she can sleep in one of my shirts. He found the softest shirt he owned and helped Chioma dress Mina in it. The shirt came down to her ankles like a dress. She looked impossibly small. Where should she sleep? Chioma asked. The master bedroom has the most comfortable bed. You both should take it. And where will you sleep? The couch. Or one of the other rooms. It doesn't matter. Chioma looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Thank you. Those 2 words felt heavier than any business deal he'd ever closed. He watched them disappear into his bedroom, the door closing softly behind them. Then he stood in the hallway for a moment, listening. He could hear Chioma's voice, soft and melodic, singing something in Igbo. A lullaby, probably. Something he'd never heard before. There was so much he didn't know about the past 2 years. So many moments he'd missed. First words, first steps, first everything. Time he could never get back no matter how much money he had or how much power he wielded. But he was here now. That had to count for something. The singing stopped. The apartment fell silent except for the ambient noise of the city outside. Chun went to his office and pulled up the files Minho had compiled. Not the evidence against Sophia, he was done with that. The other files. The ones about his organization. He'd built an empire on violence and fear. He'd climbed to the top by being more ruthless than everyone else. And now he had a daughter who would grow up knowing exactly what her father was. The thought made him feel sick. His phone buzzed. A message from Park. 3 members of the organization requested a meeting. They want to discuss the security implications of your daughter. Tell them there's nothing to discuss. Anyone who has a problem with Mina can leave the organization. Permanently. He sent the message and then made a decision. Tomorrow he'd start the process of legitimizing parts of his empire. Finding legal revenue streams. Slowly, carefully extracting himself from the worst of his operations. It would take years. It would make him enemies. Some of his own people would see it as betrayal. But when Mina was old enough to ask what her father did for a living, he wanted to have an answer that wouldn't break her heart. If you're still watching this story, I want you to think about something. Redemption isn't a moment. It's not a grand gesture or a single decision. It's 1,000 small choices, made every day, to be better than you were yesterday. Chun had money, power, and resources. But the hardest journey he'd ever take wasn't conquering a rival or closing a deal. It was becoming the kind of man his daughter could be proud of. Subscribe to see how this family rebuilds itself, one careful step at a time. The next morning, Chun woke to find Chioma already awake, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee. Mina was still asleep, curled up in the middle of his massive bed like a small island. You didn't sleep much, he observed. I kept thinking someone would break in. That this was all temporary and I'd wake up back in that abandoned building. Her voice was matter-of-fact, like she was reporting the weather. I don't think my brain believes we're safe yet. We are. I know. Logically, I know. But trauma doesn't care about logic. He sat down across from her and they were quiet for a moment. I need to tell you something. His voice was serious. About my organization. I already know what you do, Chun. Not everything. He took a breath. But you're going to. Because I'm not going to build a life with Mina on more lies and secrets. If you're going to be here, if she's going to be here, you both deserve to know exactly who I am. So he told her. Everything. The territories he controlled, the operations he ran, the violence he'd authorized. The people who'd died on his orders. The laws he'd broken. The empire he'd built on other people's suffering. Chioma listened without interrupting. Her face remained calm, but he could see her processing, evaluating, judging. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Are you going to leave?" he asked finally. "Where would I go?" Her voice was tired. "I have no money, no home, no job. I'm completely dependent on you right now. Leaving isn't an option even if I wanted to." The words stung, but he knew they were true. "But here's what I need from you." She looked at him directly. "I need you to start changing. Not because I'm asking you to, but because Mina deserves a father who doesn't have blood on his hands. I can't raise a child in this world, Chun. I won't. I know. I'm already starting the process." "Good." Her expression softened slightly. "Because despite everything, despite all the reasons I should hate you, I don't. I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm traumatized. But I don't hate you. And I want to believe you can become someone better. I want to believe we can build something real this time. We can. Maybe." She looked at Mina, still sleeping peacefully. "But it's going to take time. Years, probably. And you're going to have to prove it every single day. Words don't mean anything anymore, Chun. Only actions matter now." "Then I'll act." The bedroom door opened and Mina emerged, rubbing her eyes. She was still wearing his shirt, her hair sticking up in every direction. "Mama, I'm hungry. Let's get you some breakfast, baby." As Chioma moved to the kitchen, Mina walked over to Chun and climbed into his lap. The gesture was so natural, so trusting, that it nearly broke him. "Are you my daddy forever now?" she asked. "Forever," he promised. "Good. Because I always wanted a daddy." She said it so simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like 2 years of not having a father was just something that happened, and now it was fixed. Children have this incredible capacity for forgiveness, for acceptance, for moving forward without carrying the weight of past hurt. Adults could learn something from that. "What do you want to do today?" he asked her. "Can we go to the park again? We can go wherever you want. I want to go to a toy store." Her eyes lit up. "I've never been to a real toy store." The casual way she said it, like it was just a fact and not a devastating indictment of the childhood she'd been forced to live, made Chun's chest tight. "Then that's exactly where we'll go." They spent the day doing ordinary things that felt extraordinary because they'd never done them together before. The toy store, where Mina was overwhelmed by choices and eventually selected a stuffed elephant that she named Cloud. A bookstore, where Chioma bought picture books with a kind of desperate hunger, like she was trying to make up for every story she couldn't afford to read to Mina over the past 2 years. An ice cream shop, where Mina tried chocolate for the first time and declared it the best thing she'd ever tasted. Chun's security team followed at a discreet distance. Other customers gave them space, either recognizing Chun from the news or simply sensing that this was a family that needed privacy. By evening, they were back at the penthouse. Mina fell asleep on the couch, clutching her new elephant, surrounded by shopping bags full of clothes and toys and books. Chioma stood looking at her daughter with an expression that was hard to read. "This feels like a dream. Like I'm going to wake up and we'll be back in that building, hungry and cold and scared. You're not going back there. Ever. I know. But my brain doesn't believe it yet." She turned to look at him. "How long does it take for your mind to accept that the nightmare is over?" "I don't know." He was honest. "But we'll figure it out together." Together. She tested the word. "I haven't been together with anyone in 2 years. I've been alone, making every decision by myself, having no one to rely on. I don't know how to not be alone anymore." "Then we'll learn that too." She looked at him and he saw something shift in her expression. Not love, not yet. But possibility. The fragile beginning of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Chioma had trauma to heal. Chun had an empire to dismantle and rebuild. Mina would need stability, therapy, time to process everything she'd experienced. There would be setbacks and fights and moments when they'd wonder if they were doing the right thing. But they had something they hadn't had before. Truth. No more lies, no more secrets, no more manipulation. Just three people trying to build a family from broken pieces. And sometimes, that's exactly how the strongest things are made. From pieces that were shattered and then carefully, painfully put back together with honesty and effort and time. Chun knelt down beside the couch and gently moved a strand of hair from Mina's face. She stirred but didn't wake, just held her elephant tighter. "I'm going to be better," he whispered. "For you, I'm going to be better." Behind him, Chioma put a hand on his shoulder. Not pulling him close, not pushing him away. Just acknowledging that they were in this together, whatever this became. And in that moment, sitting on the floor of his penthouse while his daughter slept and the woman he'd loved and lost stood beside him, Chun understood something he'd never grasped before. Power wasn't about control. It wasn't about fear or money or violence. Real power was in this. In having people who depended on you and choosing to be worthy of that dependence. In having the ability to destroy someone and choosing mercy instead. In having every reason to give up and choosing to fight for something better. The ring he'd planned to give Sophia sat in a drawer somewhere, forgotten. He didn't need it anymore. Didn't need the marriage it represented or the legitimacy it would have brought. What he needed was right here. A daughter who called him daddy. A woman who was giving him a chance he didn't deserve. A future that wasn't guaranteed but was possible if he worked for it every single day. One day at a time. That's what Chioma had said. And that's exactly how he'd approach this. One day of being a better father. One day of earning back trust. One day of choosing family over empire. And maybe, after enough days, they'd look back and realize they'd built something worth having. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real. And honest. And worth fighting for. That's all any of us can really hope for in the end. Subscribe if you believe in second chances and the hard work of becoming better than you were. Reflection. Let me tell you what this story is really about, beyond the drama and the conflict and the crime. It's about consequences. Every choice we make creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can see in the moment. Chun chose to believe a lie because it was easier than seeking the truth. That choice cost him 2 years with his daughter and nearly destroyed the woman he loved. Sophia chose jealousy and control over empathy, and it ended with her losing everything she'd built. But it's also about the difference between punishment and accountability. Chun could have killed Sophia. In his world, that would have been expected, even encouraged. Instead, he chose to let the legal system handle her crimes. Not because he was soft, but because he understood that becoming a better person meant not using violence as his first solution. The story is about how trauma doesn't end when the dangerous situation ends. Chioma is safe now, has food and shelter and resources. But her mind is still in that abandoned building, still in survival mode. Healing isn't instant. It's not linear. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight with ourselves, trying to convince our traumatized brains that we're actually safe now. And perhaps most importantly, this story is about the fact that being a good parent isn't about providing material things. Yes, Mina needs food and shelter and toys. But what she really needs is presence. Consistency. A father who shows up every single day and does the work of earning her trust. A mother who, despite her own trauma, keeps choosing courage for her daughter's sake. Redemption is possible. But it's not a moment or a decision. It's a practice. It's choosing to be better every single day, even when it's hard, even when you fail, even when the people you hurt can't forgive you yet. The question isn't whether you've made mistakes. We all have. The question is what you do after the mistake is revealed. Do you make excuses? Blame others? Or do you take responsibility and begin the long, difficult work of becoming someone different? Chun had every advantage: money, power, connections. But none of that mattered when it came to being a father. The only thing that mattered was whether he'd show up and do the work. That's true for all of us. Not the mafia boss part, but the accountability part. The choosing to be better part. The understanding that the people we love deserve our best effort, not our excuses. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is giving someone space to heal, even when we desperately want to rush the process. Letting them set the pace. Proving through actions, not words, that we're worthy of a second chance. This story doesn't end with everyone living happily ever after, because that's not how real life works. It ends with the possibility of happiness, if everyone involved continues to do the hard work. And sometimes, possibility is enough to build on.